You are probably expecting that I'll show you some kind of universal editor for Godot, but it's actually better than that. I'll show you a special editor that's made for your game specifically. We will use AI, but hear me out. Out of all the awful ways to use AI, from slop graphical assets to spaghetti code, this one is actually really useful in my opinion. In Godot, the scene files, the scripts, and the resource files are all just simple plaintext documents. Because of that, you can take a couple of your project files and include them with a prompt for any of the popular LLMs like Claude or Gemini. And then you can ask it to create a web app that will do exactly what you need. Use your assets, project structure, scripts, and so on. I'll show you 3 examples. For my tower defense game, one of the very tricky things to do is balancing the difficulty scaling of the enemy waves. I have my wave information stored in a custom resource file, and that way I can see it nicely in the editor. I can adjust any of the values, drag and drop the waves, it's great. But any balance change means going through the whole level and judging just by my feel if it's too easy or too hard. So I've asked AI to create a tool that will help me with that. The output is a single HTML file that you can just open in your browser. It has all the styles and JavaScript hard-coded in it. I can load my wave resource files, and it shows me the total HP of enemies in that wave, the currency that the player can earn, and so on. What's better is that it is interactive. I can tune the values, and I can see the changes instantly. I've been reading about game theory and difficulty scaling, and one of my key takeaways was that linear scaling, where the game just gets harder and harder, is really boring. What works better is sawtooth pattern scaling, where the difficulty ramps up, it peaks, that's the one really difficult level or wave, and then it eases off a bit, let's say after a boss. It's fun to feel powerful for a while before the game gets harder again. So this tool lets me visualize the sawtooth pattern, pick the frequency and the difficulty range, and then this slider, the strength, is sort of like opacity. It will modify my values to follow the defined pattern, but only by the percentage that I set. Because, of course, difficulty is more than just these few values. Some enemies can be fast, some enemies can split into more enemies, or have other fun mechanics, which are still on me to balance properly. Once I'm done balancing, this tool lets me simply export a new resource file, and I can playtest it right away. Okay, I've got 2 more examples. The first one is a level editor. In my game, I use both a classic tile map, where I can draw the map in the editor, and hand place complex objects with scripts that do not necessarily have to stick to the grid. This can be obstacles, lava tiles, ice cubes, heat sources that melt them, the spawner, and so on. I did what I could to make the levels easy to build directly in the editor, but it still takes some time, and that makes it harder to quickly experiment with different layouts. So I've had Claude make this super simple editor, where I can place the spawners, the target, the lava tiles and ice blocks, and I can export the file and playtest it immediately. Notice how the tool has correctly drawn the tile map, where it uses the right assets for the corners and the walls. It's really interesting. I can even load my existing levels and modify them. So this is just a simple editor, but it lets me make the levels more fun a lot quicker. And the last tool is for my user interface. In Jar Defense, there are more and more UI elements, buttons, menus, floating text, image graphs. I've separated all the color definitions into one file, so they are not hard-coded just all over the place. And once again, I've used AI to create a visualizer for all the colors. On the right, I have a rough preview of how those UI elements look in my game, and I can adjust any of the colors and see them change live. I can also see useful things like a complementary color or a triad. And once again, once I'm done with the changes, I can simply export a new file that can be used in my game directly. My jar defense is on Steam. It would make my day if you wishlist it. Thanks for watching!